There are moments in life that arrive so quietly that almost everyone misses them. Nothing dramatic takes place, no arguments happen, no life-changing words are spoken. There are no clear signs that anything has shifted. Yet beneath the surface, everything begins to change. Sometimes a single realization enters a person's mind, like the first light appearing before sunrise. In one unexpected moment, they suddenly understand something they could never fully see before. What was hidden becomes visible. What once felt confusing starts to make perfect sense. Last night may have been one of those rare moments. Somewhere deep inside the heart and mind of your soulmate, a new truth about you quietly came into focus. Not a fact written in a book, not something another person explained, not a secret revealed through conversation. It was something deeply felt, something understood without words. And whether you realize it yet or not, that quiet understanding may have changed the connection between you in ways that cannot be undone. The deepest connections between two people rarely begin through conversation alone. They begin far below the surface, in the silent places where emotions and instincts quietly speak. Every person carries hidden layers within themselves. Some parts are shared openly with the world, some remain protected behind careful walls, and some stay hidden even from their own awareness. Most people only notice what is easy to see. They observe actions, appearance, habits, and everyday behavior. But real connection starts when someone notices what exists beyond those things. It begins when another person recognizes something genuine beneath the image we naturally show the world. Stay with this because what comes next may explain more than you ever expected. Sometimes the strongest moments in life happen when someone finally sees who you truly are. Not the role you have been forced to play, not the expectations placed upon your shoulders, not the version of you that others casually assume is real. They begin to see the person underneath it all. Last night something may have quietly shifted in that direction. A hidden truth may have slowly risen into view. Perhaps your soulmate realized that your strength was never built by easy days or comfortable circumstances. Maybe they finally understood that your resilience was shaped through every challenge you managed to survive. Perhaps they recognized that your kindness was never something simple or effortless. Maybe it grew from painful experiences that taught you compassion instead of bitterness. Maybe they finally understood that your quiet nature does not mean you have nothing worth saying. Instead, it may reveal a depth that very few people have ever taken the time to explore. People often believe they understand others based only on what they can observe. But the deeper mind notices much more than appearances ever reveal. Relationships often become mirrors where hidden truths slowly come into view. When someone deeply connected to your soul discovers something real about you, they are not only learning about your heart, they are discovering something important about themselves as well. That realization creates movement. It changes their thoughts, it reshapes their emotions, and sometimes it quietly changes the future of the relationship before either person says a single word. Keep listening because the next part may connect even more deeply. Maybe your soulmate suddenly realized that your silence was never emotional distance. Maybe it was thoughtful reflection. Maybe they understood that your independence was never coldness, it was quiet self-respect. Maybe they finally saw that your calm personality was not the absence of emotion, it was emotional balance built through experience. Perhaps they recognized that behind your peaceful appearance stands someone who has carried responsibilities, disappointments, and private struggles without asking anyone for recognition. Many people never notice the hidden story inside another human being. They only react to what appears on the surface. But sometimes a deeper understanding arrives, and once it does, everything begins to look different. One of life's greatest journeys is becoming your most authentic self. As people move closer to who they truly are, something interesting begins to happen. Some individuals quietly drift away because they were attached to an image rather than the real person. Others move closer because they finally recognize the truth standing in front of them. A soulmate connection cannot grow on illusion forever. It becomes stronger when honesty quietly enters the relationship. Whatever changed last night may not immediately appear through actions. Inner change rarely announces itself. It grows silently. Respect becomes deeper. Curiosity becomes stronger. Emotional closeness begins expanding without anyone forcing it. Someone starts realizing that what once seemed ordinary is actually incredibly rare. And that realization has the power to change everything. They may have reflected on every challenge you survived and every lesson you carried with you instead of leaving behind. They may have realized that your strength was shaped through difficult seasons, through moments that could have defeated you but never did. They may have finally understood that your kindness is not weakness, your patience is not passiveness, and your compassion is not something that makes you fragile. Instead, those qualities may have revealed an inner strength they had never fully recognized before. Once someone discovers a deeper truth, the way they see you begins to change. And once that new understanding settles in, it becomes almost impossible to return to old assumptions. The deeper mind remembers what it truly recognizes. Real truth leaves a lasting mark. Growth often begins the moment false ideas disappear. People do not always struggle because life changes. Sometimes they struggle because they finally see reality with clear eyes. Perhaps your soulmate realized that you were never trying to prove your value to anyone. You simply stayed genuine. You remained true to yourself, even when people misunderstood your heart. There is quiet power in people who never chase approval. Their truth stays steady. Their worth never fades. And sooner or later, someone notices. Someone finally sees what was always there. Maybe that moment arrived last night. Not through magic, not through coincidence, not through dramatic signs, but through quiet recognition. Stay with this because the next part may explain why everything suddenly feels different. One of the deepest truths about human connection is simple. People are not transformed because they meet someone new. They are transformed when they finally see someone clearly. Last night, your soulmate may have stopped looking at the version of you they had imagined. For the first time, they may have truly seen the person you have always been. Some turning points in relationships arrive without any warning at all. No announcement is made, no emotional speech is given, no unforgettable event takes place. Everything changes because one quiet realization appears. The strongest discoveries often happen in complete silence. Your soulmate may have uncovered a truth that had always existed. It was never hidden because it was new. It simply waited patiently to be noticed. People often believe relationships grow stronger only because time passes. But time alone cannot create understanding. Awareness creates understanding. Two people can know each other for years and still remain strangers to each other's inner world. Then one simple moment arrives. One realization appears. Suddenly everything feels different. Not because either person became someone new overnight, but because the way they saw each other changed. That single shift in perspective can quietly rewrite the future of a connection. Keep watching because what comes next may connect every piece together. Maybe your soulmate realized that your strength never came from avoiding pain. Maybe they saw that your courage came from facing difficult moments and continuing anyway. Maybe they understood that your calm nature was shaped through experience, that your silence carried purpose, and that your patience reflected emotional discipline instead of hesitation. Many people misunderstand quiet individuals. They assume silence means emotional distance. But very often, silence is simply depth. It is reflection. It is awareness. It is the understanding that not everything meaningful needs to be spoken immediately. Every person wears a social mask to some degree. We appear confident while hiding uncertainty. We seem strong while carrying private struggles. We smile while protecting the parts of ourselves that feel too personal to explain. Most people connect only with that outer layer. They respond to appearances. They react to expectations. But real connection begins when someone chooses to look beyond the surface. Your soulmate may have realized that the qualities they admire in you were never accidental. They were earned. They were shaped through experience. They were built through steady growth. Perhaps they finally understood that your kindness required courage, that your loyalty came from strong values, and that your quiet nature was never emotional absence. It reflected respect for emotions and a deep understanding of their importance. Truth changes relationships in powerful ways, not because truth creates something completely new, but because it reveals what has been there all along. When someone finally sees that truth, they begin to recognize the value of what was always standing in front of them. Sometimes, the greatest transformation does not happen because a person changes. Sometimes it happens because another person finally sees them clearly. That realization may become the very thing that changes everything. Once a deeper truth becomes visible, people rarely return to their old understanding. Something shifts inside them. The way they look at another person begins to change. The way they interpret actions becomes different. Small details that once seemed ordinary suddenly carry unexpected meaning. Awareness creates transformation. What remains hidden cannot influence us in the same way as what becomes fully understood. The moment something moves out of the shadows and into clear awareness, it begins changing the way people think, feel, and respond. This may be exactly what happened last night. Your soulmate may have recognized something about you that had always existed. Not something recently created, not something new, simply something they had never fully noticed before. And once they recognized it, their understanding quietly changed forever. When people truly recognize another person's character, they naturally begin relating to them differently. They listen more carefully. They notice the smallest details. They become aware of things they once ignored without realizing it. What once seemed ordinary begins to feel extraordinary. Qualities that blended quietly into the background suddenly become impossible to overlook. Familiar moments begin revealing unexpected depth, and often the truth that changes everything is not dramatic at all. Sometimes, the deepest realization is incredibly simple. Perhaps they realized that you had been genuine from the very beginning. Perhaps they understood that your actions reflected your values, that your words matched your character, and that your presence carried quiet meaning even when you spoke very little. In a world where so many people try hard to impress others, maybe they finally recognized that you were never performing. You were simply living as your authentic self. Relationships built upon assumptions are often fragile because assumptions create expectations, and expectations often create disappointment. People stop relating to reality and begin responding to an image they created inside their own minds. Eventually, those images fall apart. But relationships built on truth grow stronger because truth removes illusion, creates understanding, and allows people to connect with who someone truly is rather than who they imagined them to be. Last night may have looked completely ordinary from the outside. No dramatic event happened. No obvious sign appeared. Yet inside someone's heart, something important may have quietly awakened. Through meaningful relationships, people often discover hidden parts of themselves. Human beings learn who they are through genuine connection. Sometimes, another person's presence becomes the mirror that reveals truths we never noticed before. And once that reflection becomes clear, life rarely feels the same again. The people who leave the deepest mark on our lives often awaken something sleeping inside us. They remind us of strengths we forgot we possessed. They uncover fears we never fully understood. They bring hidden emotions into the light, where they can no longer be ignored. Perhaps your soulmate did not simply discover something meaningful about you. Perhaps they uncovered something important about themselves through knowing you. That quiet realization may have carried far more weight than either of you could have imagined. Most people believe they understand who they are. They define themselves through daily routines, achievements, responsibilities, and memories. They build their identity around the roles they perform every single day. Yet much of human nature exists below conscious awareness. Deep inside are hidden strengths, unspoken fears, forgotten dreams, quiet desires, and untapped possibilities. Many people carry these unseen parts for years without recognizing them. Then someone enters their life and suddenly everything begins rising to the surface. Not because that person created something new, but because they revealed what had always existed. Perhaps your soulmate looked at you and felt something they could no longer ignore. Maybe your patience reflected how rushed their own life had become. Maybe your peaceful nature revealed how much pressure they had quietly been carrying. Maybe your honesty exposed how much effort they had spent protecting appearances. Maybe your emotional depth reminded them of feelings they had avoided for far too long. Keep watching, because the next realization may explain why this connection feels impossible to forget. Powerful emotional reactions often point towards something hidden beneath the surface. When someone deeply admires another person, they may actually be recognizing qualities they secretly hope to develop within themselves. When someone feels challenged by another person, they may be standing face to face with truths they are not yet ready to accept. In both situations, the other person becomes a mirror. And mirrors have remarkable power because they reveal what already exists instead of creating something new. Perhaps your soulmate realized that the peace they had been searching for quietly appeared whenever they thought about you. Perhaps they noticed that your authenticity felt refreshing in a world where so many people perform instead of simply living. Maybe they discovered that what attracted them most was never perfection. It was honesty. It was sincerity. It was truth. Every person carries hidden parts of themselves that are often ignored, rejected, or carefully hidden away. Those unseen parts continue influencing life even when people refuse to acknowledge them. Meaningful relationships have a way of bringing those hidden parts into awareness. The right person can uncover strengths we underestimated. They can expose fears we kept avoiding. They can reveal qualities waiting patiently to be accepted. In this way, genuine connection becomes a path toward personal growth. Stay with this, because the next few moments may reveal something even more surprising. Your soulmate may have realized that every conversation with you carried more meaning than they ever admitted to themselves. They may have noticed that your quiet confidence gently challenged their own self-doubt. They may have recognized that your ability to live without chasing constant approval made them question their own need for validation. The remarkable thing about awareness is that it changes perception, and once perception changes, everything else begins changing with it. Nothing about you may have changed at all. Your values remained steady. Your character stayed the same. Your heart never became different. The only thing that changed was understanding. Yet understanding has the power to reshape an entire relationship. People begin listening with greater care. They become more thoughtful. They notice details they once overlooked without realizing it. They stop reacting to assumptions and begin responding to reality instead. Becoming whole always begins with greater self-awareness. But sometimes that awareness arrives because another person quietly reflects something back to us. Sometimes another soul becomes the mirror that allows us to see ourselves clearly for the very first time. Last night, your soulmate may have looked at you and unexpectedly discovered something about their own inner world. That single realization may now be changing everything without either of you speaking a single word. One of life's greatest struggles is balancing authenticity with the desire to be accepted. From childhood, people slowly learn how to adapt. They discover which behaviors receive praise. They notice which qualities gain approval. They learn how to fit comfortably inside other people's expectations. Over time, many begin creating versions of themselves designed to earn acceptance. They become more agreeable, more impressive, more successful, more controlled, more careful. Eventually, those identities become so familiar that some people forget who they truly are underneath. Real transformation begins when someone stops focusing on appearances and starts living from authenticity. Perhaps this is exactly what your soulmate recognized about you. Maybe they realized that your strength never came from looking perfect. Maybe they saw that your greatest power came from being real. In a world that often celebrates perfection, authenticity quietly becomes one of the rarest qualities anyone can possess. Many people spend enormous energy managing how they appear to others. They display confidence while hiding uncertainty. They present success while quietly carrying struggle. They build polished versions of themselves because they fear rejection. But becoming whole has never required becoming flawless. It simply requires becoming genuine. Perhaps your soulmate finally recognized this quiet truth about you. They may have realized that you were never trying to impress anyone. You were never creating an image. You were never performing to earn approval. You were simply living in harmony with who you truly are. You allowed life to shape your character. You learned from every experience. You carried wisdom without needing attention. You kept moving forward without demanding recognition. And maybe that realization changed everything. Authenticity often creates an unexpected reaction. At first, people misunderstand it. Genuine individuals are sometimes called distant because they do not seek constant attention. They are sometimes called difficult because they refuse to change themselves just to fit in. They are sometimes called quiet because they choose reflection over noise. But with time, authenticity reveals a strength that cannot be copied. It builds trust. It creates stability. It earns lasting respect. Your soulmate may have realized that your honesty carried more power than perfection ever could. They may have discovered that your calm presence created more security than the biggest promises. They may have noticed that your imperfections never weakened your character. Instead, they made you human. They made you relatable. They made you real. The journey toward becoming your true self is never easy. It asks people to face uncomfortable truths. It asks them to accept their contradictions. It asks them to stop measuring their worth through other people's approval. Many spend years avoiding that journey because it feels uncertain and uncomfortable. Yet when someone meets a person who is already walking that path, something remarkable often happens. They feel relief. Authenticity quietly gives others permission to stop pretending. Perhaps last night your soulmate realized that around you they felt free. They did not feel pressure to perform. They did not feel the need to compete. They did not feel forced to hide important parts of themselves. Instead, they felt accepted. They felt understood. They felt safe enough to simply be real. That realization changes relationships in ways words cannot fully describe. Perfection often creates distance because people believe they must earn closeness. Authenticity creates something far deeper. It creates trust. It creates belonging. It creates lasting connection. Perhaps the greatest truth revealed last night was never that you were flawless. Perhaps it was that you never built your identity around hiding your flaws. You embraced growth without rejecting yourself. You carried strength without needing to prove it. You stayed genuine in a world that often values appearance over substance. What is truly real carries its own quiet power. It never needs to demand attention or announce itself. It simply exists. And when someone finally recognizes that truth, something shifts inside them forever. They stop chasing perfection. They begin valuing honesty. They stop searching for appearances and start appreciating substance. The deepest transformations rarely arrive with noise. They come quietly. A fresh understanding appears. A hidden truth rises into view. Awareness enters the heart. And from that moment on, nothing is ever seen in quite the same way again. The people who leave the deepest mark on our lives rarely do so through grand gestures alone. Their influence works quietly. It unfolds beneath ordinary conversations, simple moments and memories that seem small at first. Yet those moments continue living inside us long after they are over. They awaken parts of ourselves that had been sleeping for years. They remind us of strengths we had forgotten we possessed. They uncover fears we never fully understood because we had spent so much time avoiding them. They bring hidden emotions gently into the light, where they can no longer remain invisible. Sometimes they help us recognize dreams we quietly abandoned. Sometimes they reveal courage we never believed we had. Their presence becomes more than comforting. It becomes transformative. Without trying to change us, they slowly encourage us to become more honest with ourselves. That is why certain people continue occupying our thoughts long after they leave the room. They awaken something that was already waiting to be discovered. The people who leave the deepest mark on our lives rarely do so through dramatic moments alone. Their influence moves quietly, almost invisibly, working beneath ordinary conversations, brief smiles, shared silence and memories that seem small at first, but grow more meaningful as time passes. Long after those moments are over, they continue echoing inside us. They awaken parts of ourselves that had been asleep for years. They remind us of strengths we forgot we carried. They uncover fears we never completely understood because we became so used to hiding them. They bring forgotten emotions gently into the light where they can finally be acknowledged instead of ignored. Sometimes they help us rediscover dreams we quietly gave up on. Sometimes they reveal courage we never believed existed inside us. Sometimes they show us that we have been stronger than we ever gave ourselves credit for. Their presence becomes more than comforting. It becomes life-changing. Without trying to reshape who we are, they quietly encourage us to become more honest with ourselves. That is why certain people remain in our thoughts long after they have walked away. They awaken something that was always waiting to be discovered. They remind us of a version of ourselves that had never completely disappeared. If this resonates with you, keep listening because the next realization may explain why this connection feels so different from every other relationship you have experienced. Perhaps your soulmate did not simply discover something meaningful about you. Perhaps they uncovered something important about themselves because of you. That quiet realization may have carried far more weight than either of you could imagine. Most people believe they understand exactly who they are. They define themselves through routines, responsibilities, achievements, and familiar memories. They build their identity around the roles they perform every single day. They become comfortable inside those roles until they begin believing those roles are their entire identity. Yet beneath that familiar surface exists a much larger inner world. Hidden there are quiet strengths waiting to be trusted, fears waiting to be understood, hopes waiting to be embraced, and possibilities waiting for the right moment to appear. Many people carry these hidden qualities for years without ever recognizing them. Life becomes predictable. The days repeat themselves. Nothing seems to change. Then someone enters their life and almost without warning, everything begins moving beneath the surface. Not because that person created something new, but because they revealed what had always been there. They became a light shining into places that had remained unseen for a very long time. They helped hidden truths slowly rise into awareness. They reminded someone of parts of themselves they thought had been lost forever. Perhaps your soulmate looked at you and noticed a feeling they simply could not dismiss anymore. Maybe your patience quietly reflected how rushed their own life had become. Maybe your peaceful nature revealed how much pressure they had been carrying without admitting it to anyone. Maybe your honesty exposed how much energy they had spent maintaining appearances instead of simply living truthfully. Maybe your emotional depth reminded them of feelings they had pushed aside for years because facing them felt too difficult. Maybe your quiet confidence made them question why they depended so heavily on outside approval. Maybe your ability to remain calm during uncertainty reminded them how exhausted they had become from constantly trying to control everything. Sometimes, another person's presence says more than thousands of words ever could. Sometimes, simply observing another human being living authentically becomes enough to inspire deep reflection. Powerful emotional reactions rarely happen without reason. They often point towards something hidden beneath ordinary awareness. Strong admiration sometimes reveals qualities we secretly wish to develop. Strong discomfort sometimes reveals truths we are not yet ready to accept. In both situations, another person becomes a mirror, and mirrors never create reality. They simply reveal what has always existed beneath the surface, patiently waiting to be seen.